Alright guys, in today's video, we are talking about my 8 tips into filming yourself. But anyway, roll that intro. As you guys saw in that short film, the one that I posted last week and the one that's in the beginning of this video, it was pretty nice, right? But I shot that by myself, no crew, nothing. So my first tip is to get creative and use what you have. In this first scene right here, on this first scene that I did, you saw that I needed to get a low angle shot, and I have carpet. So I took the desk that I'm sitting at. I still had the cardboard at the time, and so I put that down on the ground, a cardboard box. That is me using what I have to get creative. I wasn't gonna stop my creative juices from flowing just because I didn't have nothing that would allow me to get stable shots on the ground. I used what I had. And if that means using a cardboard box, by all means, use what you have and get creative. Don't let something stop you from being creative because you don't have the so-called latest and greatest. My tripod isn't that low for me to get low to the ground. And using my tripod wasn't the angle that I was looking for when it came down to that shot. Even on the other side, you see this board right here? This board, I took that out my pantry. I took the board out my pantry just for me to have stable shots and for it to be low enough to the ground. Use what you have. Get creative. Tip number 2, spend more time in pre-production. That means just because you're shooting by yourself don't mean you get to skip out on all the fundamentals of film creator, right? So write your script, get your locations, your shot list, what you're going to use for lighting, what you're going to use for audio, makeup. Spend more time in pre-production, especially because you're filming by yourself. And when you put in that work, it will put in work back for you by saving you time in the editing room and also save you time filming because you could film it one time. Tip number 3 when it comes down to filming yourself is how to keep focus. So there's 2 things you can do to keep focus. One of them is to just shoot in manual focus. As you can see right here, I set my focus and then I went into the scene. I had to use manual focus in this instance for the simple fact that, for one, I'm moving around and I didn't want my focus to change. And I knew that in this scene, I was going to be turning from one side to the next. And because I'm turning, if I used autofocus, I already knew that autofocus would have switched and it would have went all over the place. And I wanted my focus to remain in one spot that I set. Tip number 4, camera movement. Now there's 3 ways that you could keep camera or to create movement within your shot, because movement shots look better than static shots, but at the end of the day you have to do what you gotta do. You know what I mean? Alright, so there's 3 things you can use. You can use a slider, you can use a gimbal, or you can do it in post. A slider, if you have an automatic slider like the Edelkrone, you can set your in and out points. And then you could have the slider just move in that direction, move to that point that you set. You could have it turn and pan. It is pretty nice, but I'm broke. I can't afford that. You feel me? And I'm pretty sure a lot of you can't afford that either, unless you have a giant production. And if you have a giant production, I'm pretty sure you could get somebody to help you film something. But besides the point. Another thing you could do is gimbal. You could get the gimbal, and most gimbals come with an app. So with that app, and depending on the scene that you're shooting, you could connect your gimbal to your phone, and I would say you're walking past the camera. You walk past, and the camera is focused mainly on your face, so the camera is not catching your hands. That is on the app that is turning the slider for you. So that's another tip that you can use when it comes down to using a gimbal. But in my case, I was using my phone, and in the shots that I was trying to get, I had no reason to pan left, pan right, tilt up, or tilt down. So I resorted to the 3rd step, or 3rd option, which is in-post movement. In the beginning scene, I used it to just pan right in because I wanted to get that motion of the camera coming close to the subject. And then as the subject rolled around, it just cut right to the next scene. And those are your three options: slider, gimbal, in post. Tip number 5, how to get great audio. So in this short film, I didn't have no speaking lines or anything like that, but in post I did do sound design. I added all the sound that you guys hear within this video. Why? Because sound is half the viewing experience, and therefore you could, if you close your eyes and just listen to a sound, all the sound that's in all the great Hollywood film, you could paint a picture just by the sound. So don't neglect sound. Remember, in post, add some sound design to immerse your audience within it. Tip number 6, lighting. And there's 4 steps when it comes down to lighting. You got the direction of light, the color of light, the quality of light, and the quantity of light. So when it comes down to direction of light, by you storyboarding, scripting, you already know the placement where you want to place your lights to create that cinematic lighting. When it comes down to color of light, keep in mind that using natural light or even artificial light, you can get different color temperatures. If you're shooting a whole day, the light cast is going to change throughout that day. So keep that in mind. Quality of light. Even when you're shooting artificial light or natural light, you want to remember the quality of light. If you have a giant softbox and you get it closer to your subject, you can create that nice, smooth, soft light. Further away, it's going to be harsh. In this scene right here, you can see I do have some artificial lighting on me, but if you look at the wall in the background, you can see I needed to add in some more lighting because the light quantity that I had wasn't enough. So as you can see, the window light is actually shining on the background, and if I had a diffuser, I could have diffused it even more. I didn't have any white sheets to just throw up to just diffuse that harsh lighting coming in, but at the same time it still worked out because I know how to shape the lighting. So I use that window lighting as like a background light to add more depth within the image. Step number 7, know your limit. Know what you're able to do in post and know the shots that you can create out of post. So by doing step number 2, which is doing that pre-production work, you could have a grasp on the shots that you're able to create by yourself and the limit on what you have in doing in post. In these 2 scenes right here, I knew my limitations on what I was able to do both in post and also filming. So I filmed myself behind myself laying down, but because I knew in post that I would be able to just mask some parts in to help fill in that scene. And right here, when you see that entity or ghost behind me while I'm laying down, I knew I would be able to just mask those 2 clips together to actually create what you see in this section right here. And then I immersed it with sound design as well to actually paint that picture of an entity behind me as I'm laying down. So by knowing my limit, I knew what I was able to do just by shooting, and I knew what I was able to do in post. Don't get me wrong, you still want to do step number 1, and that's be creative. The only way you're going to get to that next level is if you push yourself to get to that next level, which means you have to try new things and get out your comfort zone. But because I did the pre-production, I knew what I was able to do and what I wasn't able to do, and if I wanted to try something new, I will try it because I would have wrote it in, and I would have wrote in an alternative. And this brings me on to my final step, number 8, and that is be natural. A lot of times when you turn on the camera, you get shy and things like that. Woo! But you being natural, or at least you having fun, goes a long way. Eventually, you'll get comfortable behind the camera. Even me shooting this YouTube video right here, I'm not perfect. I don't have a script written out. And yeah, I still make mistakes, but I just go back, edit those mistakes out, so that way everything that I'm saying just flows a lot smoothly. Smooth. And at the end of the day, I'm filming and therefore I'm having fun, so I have no problem doing this. Am I perfect? No. Are you perfect? No. Why? Because we're humans. So just be as natural as you can, and the best way to be natural is to have fun. Another way you can do it though is if you get an external monitor, because you can actually see what you're doing, and that kind of helps ease the tension of like, oh, am I in focus? Oh, am I getting things right? And yeah, have fun. That's the way to be natural. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap it up for this video right here. Do what your other YouTubers always tell you to do, and subscribe.